All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight. We are always so honored to be here in the space of the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history. My name is P.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We have been queer-owned since 1974, which makes us 50 years old. And since we will be talking about what it means to be a queer-owned business, in addition to a lot of other things tonight, I just wanted to say that out loud to this space because I do think it's important that we support all of our different cultural institutions at this time and work together because we need us now more than ever. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for celebrating this cultural institution because our libraries need us now. The librarians who work here are incredible people. They volunteer their time. They work like extra hours to be here with us. So please value them as much as you value everybody who's on the stage tonight. I know you do. That's why we're here. But we are here tonight to celebrate Black Market Vintage. I'm sure that if you're here, you're already know their incredible work. The work of curation, their incredible store, and now this incredible book, which is just so beautiful. The book is called Black Market Vintage, Reclaiming Objects and Curiosities That Tell Black Stories. We're going to get all the way into it, so I'm not going to say too much about it. First, I'm going to introduce Renata Cherlise, who is a research-based visual artist, memory worker, founder, and author of Black Archivists, a photographic celebration of Black life. Cherlise uses various mediums to explore themes of identity, family, and culture. Her work seamlessly bridges her Southern upbringing with contemporary methodologies in digital and physical spaces while reimagining notions of the Black experience. Her archival project, Black Archivists, has evolved from a passion project, a photo-based website of visual narratives, into a collaborative platform featuring archival histories and modern-day stories across the African diaspora. And Renata's book is out in the lobby as well. It's an incredible book. If you somehow missed it last year when it came out, 2 years ago now when it came out, check it out. I'm really proud to be able to feature it tonight and to have Renata here as our moderator and conversation partner. But the folks you were here to see tonight are the ladies. Jannah and Kiyanna Handy are the co-founders of Black Market Vintage, an online vintage antique concept shop that specializes in collectibles and curiosities, representing the richness of Black history and lived experience. Their passion for material culture and found objects has led them to interior design projects, personal sourcing, set design, prop rental, museum loan, and other curatorial projects in media, entertainment, education, the arts, and philanthropy. Jannah has a background in business and education with a BA in economics from Smith College and an MA in higher education from UMass Amherst. Kiyanna has a background in fashion and education with a BA in journalism and Africana studies and an MA in women's studies, all from Rutgers University. The pair jointly serve on the board trustees of Weeksville Heritage Center, one of the country's first free Black communities in their hometown of Brooklyn, New York. So please put your hands together for Jannah and Kiyanna Handy and Renata Cherlise. Yep. Just.
Like scissors. There you go. Okay. Okay. We gotta do this one. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna start with this one. Yeah, I thought I heard yours.
Sir, your extension cord.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Okay. While we figure out sound. Hello. It's so good to see y'all. Amen. Compared to New York and Chicago, where we were yesterday, it's feels like summertime, right? Great. All right. And it feels good to be here in conversation with Renata. Thank you, ER, for the introduction. And sorry. Yes, sure. So
We're gonna work it out. Y'all keep on.
we're gonna be pessimistic.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna figure it out.
With us while we work this out. So yeah, we're grateful to be here with Renata, a Black archivist, and sharing in this conversation about what it means to be a keeper of the culture, a steward, and archivists, creative entrepreneurs, business owners, world builders, library workers, etc. And I'm grateful that we have so much language to explore the work that we do, the shared work that we do. And really, this book is an opportunity for us to explore our work, document our work for the last 10 years, and then explore the rich constellation of folks that kind of share in the work and the labor with us. And Renata was one of those people who generously said, absolutely, yes. I'll talk to y'all. We can explore together. Let's have a Zoom call. And we interviewed a number of folks whose positionality to material culture is kind of tangential to ours. And so archivists, collectors, artists, makers, memory workers, librarians, junkers, collectors, dealers. We're just like, who does work with Black objects? And we want to talk to those folks about what their work looks like. So our book tour has been a celebration of those conversations and really bringing them to life in different ways. And so this is an extension of the hour change long Zoom call that we had about 2 years ago at this point. So again, thank you for being here. And let's kick it off with a reading. Want to share some?
Yes. So I'm going to share a brief reading from both books. It is great to have our book be in conversation with Renata. But I was like, they need to keep together this regular. Get a coffee table. Hello, you need to go. All right, so I'll start with Renata's. And I'm actually going to read from both introductions because I really think that it sets us up for really the crux of both of our work. And it really sets up in this conversation. So from Renata's book. To meditate on a name, face, or sound of someone's laughter is an intentional act of remembering or an attempt to resist forgetting. Remembering or being reminded of helps to rework our understanding of our identity by giving us insight into the people and places that shape us. Through photography and more broadly for us, particularly family objects, pictures and snapshots, we get a better sense of our people, our histories, and our stories. We're able to add to or cultivate a language that for the rest of our lives that cannot be fully known, even if such. Perfect. And to echo that same sentiment, we are so privileged to have one of our longtime clients and friends and crazy uncles like me write our intro. And so what he did for our intro is he wrote a message to us, and then he wrote a message to the readers. And it goes to my sisters. What you ladies do is powerful. We as Black people were stolen from Mother Africa, robbed of our religion, language, history, And here y'all are with the business and practice to help assist us to get closer to all the ways we and our ancestors have existed throughout history, before slavery, through the diaspora. Everybody didn't have the same access that Alex Haley did and his family to genealogy tracing back then. Clearly, that's a throwback reference to Alex Haley. I recently had a genealogy tracing done, and it was powerful for me to know where I stemmed from. And while I'm on the subject of genes and biology and ethnicity right now, your work is also about the culture, placing and locating us in the culture. We need to connect with our ancestors. And you don't have to go back to Africa for that. We've been here since 1619. I know you educate folks in your store in your broader work. Like you've told me several times, people come to you with stuff and they just think it's junk. They don't know that they don't know what they have or the context in which it came to be. I've got to applaud you for exposing so many folks to what you do. Back in the day, we said knowledge is power, and that wasn't a cheesy slogan. It was a way of life and honoring our histories. We don't all know our power because we're not all connected to the power of our ancestors. So I congratulate you sisters again, and thank you for the work that you do and for connecting me to the pieces of material culture to help strengthen me and my own ancestral awareness.
Nope. Yeah.
A little bit.
It's nice to see you. Robert, can you hear me now? Yeah. So, can you hear me now? So I'm originally from Jacksonville. Yeah. I just want to take some time just to introduce myself, right? Like, I live in Atlanta, Metro. I've been here out for years now, right? And this is the first time that I'm actually having outside. Right? So I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of the conversation, not just with the book, but like in real life. And thank you all for coming out here. So I have been part of your community for so long, right? Like, I know as far as Black Archivists, we get 10 years this summer, right? And you guys have been doing the work, you know, even before the work has been named, right? You've been doing the work. And so I want to thank you for that. But with this book, it's so beautiful. I'm just curious about the collaboration process, you know, as far as, you know, as individual artists and individual creators, you know, within your life partnership. And I got this question right now because I want to make sure I ask it the way that.
Now, before you ask that question, I'm gonna ask you to use Kiyanna's mic. You are beautifully soft spoken.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm curious about your collaboration process as life partners and as individual artists, as creatives, and how that shows up for Black Market Vintage. I want to know how you guys define roles, you know, in the creative process. You know, you're brainstorming, you're creating the book, right? Like, who's writing? Are you both writing? Who's editing? I'm curious to know about like, sequencing in the photos, right? Categorizing, all that. Like, who's photographing, right? Like, there's so many steps as far as like brainstorming, right? And not just with the book itself, but like do so many other things outside, right? Either interior designing, right? Designing other things, right? So much. So, are you both involved in all of the projects?
Sure, yes. So Kiyanna and I, we partner in so many ways. And I appreciate because our therapist is always like, y'all are in conflict, you're in development. And so I'm just like, I'll take that. We work really, really good together. We don't always work well together. And that realization alone has helped us so much over 10 years now that we've been in business together and dating. When it comes to the actual logistics of the book, that was interesting because we tried to write together. We honestly tried to write together. And I was like, do we want to be married or do we want to write this book together? And the piece that really saved us was the radical communication. And knowing that we both want to write this book, knowing that we both want to write this book together, but like that, we cannot write every sentence together. We're not going to choose all big words. You know, we had to really rely on our strengths, like you said in the question, relax to get to where we need to go. So you'll see that in the format of the book, each of us takes a chapter. So each chapter, you'll see at the beginning who writes it, and you'll hear it from our voice. And that was really important because sometimes there are times where in our business you'll hear our different voices, but there are times where we are collapsed together. We are Black Art Vintage. And so this book really gave us an opportunity to show our different voices, but also for you to learn more about us individually, but also to see how, even though we are talking about our different backgrounds, how there's so much convergence that led us to this work to begin with.
Yeah, I agree. I think partnership is a really beautiful lesson in evolution, how relationships and partnerships shift and need different things at different times. And so there was a time early on we were doing all the things together. That's not the case anymore because, again, want to be married and stay married and want to remain in partnership in ways that speak to our strengths and that feel fulfilling for both of us, that's efficient for the business. Like, we can't both be doing all the same things at the same time. And that just speaks to how much the business has grown and shifted over the years. And so we've had to divvy up a lot of the work. And so what that looks like now at this moment is interior projects. I take the lead on most of those and really use my design sensibility. And Jannah supports those projects like on a needed basis. Some projects we do together, but for the most part, I'm taking the lead and working directly with the clients to bring their spaces, whether it be a residential space or commercial space, to fruition. And Jannah's assisting. Jannah takes the lead on all of the merch design, a lot of the products and merch collaborations. So our annual Juneteenth collaboration, like Jannah is spearheading that on an annual basis and working with artists and creatives and vendors and doing all of the logistics. Fulfillment and online shop, that's something that I take the lead on. Some of the administrative stuff I take the lead on, and Jannah takes the lead on the sourcing and building and cultivating relationships so that items can find their way to us. So she is out at flea markets and antique spots 2 times a week, sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning. She's up and I'm in bed. Send me pictures of the things. Let me know how much it's all come out to. I can't wait to see you bring it home. What we used to say is she brings home the bacon and I cook it up. She's incredible when it comes to sourcing and scouring spaces. Again, building the relationships that are necessary to allow folks to like trust us with their items that are important and that are storied. And she's just amazing at that. But cooking it up is about the aesthetics and about the styling and about the photographing and the marketing, and that's really where I shine. So that's how we really divvied up the labor. And in terms of the book, Jannah was right. Like it was how do 2 people or like more than one person, how do you write a book together? What does that look like for a book that's going to be like 300 pages? What does that look like? And we tried to write together, and then we decided to divvy up the chapters. I really appreciate that. In this book project, you can see both of our voices and get to learn who we are as individuals. Because we are 2 people with very, very different stories who have come together to really create something beautiful as a labor of love. So that's a little bit of how we divvied up the labor. And I think just for the images and for the chapters, the images were a little bit of a group process between us and our editor. And we already had a rich archive of photography and scans because this is 10 years worth of objects that we've come across. So we used a lot of images that we already had and then supplemented what we needed for the book with new photography and had a short list of photographers that we wanted to shoot, like the cover, and to shoot these, the chapter headings. Nakia Brown is a fantastic photographer from Jersey, now living in the DMV. Yeah, she's in Baltimore. We went to college together, and her work is centered around Black women's beauty and hair practices. Just incredible still life photography, and has since we were in college together. And so she was at the top of the list because of her work with the feminine objects. So we were like, we gotta have her shoot. So we could not have her shoot the whole book, but we figured shooting the head for each chapter would be a really special way to include, like, have her take on all of the objects that are included in that chapter and curate the view. So you'll see the work featured throughout the book in about 10 or 11 photographs.
So said, there's a situation that comes up and you say yes and you say no. Like, who's the mediator? Like, how does that work out?
It depends on the day, it depends on who's eating. It's, I think the balance that we often have to strike is, I think there are also times where we do not have to agree on everything. And that might sound a little odd because you gotta be in agreement about what you put out to the public and how things are working so you're on the same page. And yes, there's a way to be on the same page, but allow one another to kind of do their thing. So if we're at a standstill, which happens often, I'm gonna yes, you're right, and no. We're gonna talk about it until we can come to a compromise. If we can't come to a compromise, let's put it down and come back to it.
Honestly, it's compromise and proper consumers. Like honestly, like if we get to the point at an impasse where it's like we both really strongly about something, we just kind of have to let it go. It's us now, so we have to let it go. But I think about what are situations where it's like yes and no. I think it maybe probably wrong quantity. Like if we go to a market or store or something and I see something that is so dope, I'm like, I want to buy all of that. And Kiyanna's like, you just need one, babe. Maybe two. And I'm just like, well, maybe can we get 5? And so I think that's the thing where we can kind of go back and forth. But there are times where I'm like, babe, we need all 30 of them. And I'm able to talk to her, explain to her we need all 30. And she's like, let's get all 30. And so just like that commitment is communicating, but also knowing that it doesn't always have to be my way, but let's talk about why it should be my way.
Yeah. You see what I'm up against?
I was thinking about how powerful that is, you know, as a team, right? When I was writing that book, when I was working, like it was, you know, I consider the photographs, I consider that to be it's more like a silent collaboration, right? Like I'm still consulting. I'm still asking for certain permissions. I'm still listening. Most importantly, right? What are they saying? How, you know, as far as like structuring things of that nature. But, you know, collaboration, I think, is still very important, you know, even if it's, you know, a situation where, you know, you're vocal about it, right? Or if there's a, you know, some sort of intuition where you're listening and you're trying to figure out what do these images mean and what they represent and how do I present it in a way that people are looking at it. Thank you for sharing that.
And I'm just curious, as you talk about that, what does your team look like when you're making curatorial decisions? Whether it's for the book, for the IG, or some other project that you're working on, who are you consulting?
Yeah, so consulting. So I have a small team as far as like the big projects that we take on for Black archivists, right? Creative director was able to live in LA, but it's from them. So, you know, we have been working before the start of Black Archives, so he's someone that I really trust in making decisions with photography. He does everything, right? When it comes to social media, like I'm very hands-on with Black Archives as far as Instagram and Facebook and all of that, right? So, and it's very important for me to be intentional and for me to touch the art. Like I'm not physically touching their digital materials, but if I were to hand this off, because a lot of times people ask me like, "Don't you need like a social media manager?" I think we're at like what 600,000 followers right now, so don't you need a social media manager? Which would be helpful, right? But I feel like that takes away from the work, right? I'm not touching the archives. I don't know where they are. You know, a lot of times I'm on assignments where I have to source the materials. And if I'm relying on someone else to do that work, then, you know, they need that kind of thing. Yeah, so I always want to be present. And so I consult myself, right? In terms of like, you know, but I do ask myself, there's a series of questions that I ask myself, right? When I'm like working through just like, oh, I'm going to use this, you know, I'm making sure that, you know, ethically and morally that I'm working in the ways that I need to be working and not just asserting myself. Does that make sense? Right? So there's like a series of questions that I actually ask myself and I kind of go through that process. And if I'm not doing it, then I just won't post it. Right? So, yeah. So thanks for that. I have more questions.
Yeah. I get a whole lot. We have a bunch of needs.
Where do I go next? All right, so in my book, right, there's a section that I have titled Things We Leave Behind, right, as we transition to the next phase of our lives, or on Earth or otherwise. And I'm wondering, like, can you imagine an afterlife for the things that you leave behind in your collection? Where do these things live? Who do they not belong to? Are they always considered your things, even if not in your possession or attached to a living physical body? Or do they have lives of their own?
It's funny. We have a conversation scheduled in a few weeks in Philly. I flew a long time ago, and we are talking to Chantrell Lewis, Dandelion, and Mama Coco, both priests and scholars and authors, and in African spirituality. And the conversation is around altars, ancestors, objects, and the spiritual component to the work. So I think this question is deeply connected to that. I do think that items hold and live many lives. And I recognize that there is a part of this work is not just about stewarding objects and keeping objects or selling and trading and collecting objects. That's one part of it, but it is about stewarding people's stories, and that people's objects hold memory and spirit and experiences as well. And no one really cognizant of that. Like when we're in the field and we're sourcing a space, like there are just moments where you've got a visceral feeling about objects and spaces. And so that's just always part of our awareness. I think that the objects that we have, in a way, still belong to the people that no longer have them. Like they're part of their stories. They're part of the fabric of the object. And I think that our objects, wherever they wind up after us, will contain those stories in and out. It's a little bit like a cipher where you just get to add on folks and their experiences and their stories and different usages and place, and they just kind of hold all that. So yeah, that's what I think about them. And sometimes it's so morbid. Just be sitting around and like, the estate sale, we're going to so out of it. Like I hope they price these here, but like, oh, you come in, you get it. It's just gonna be amazing. We talk often about where we want our things to wind up, and we actually don't have anything documented right now. We're still in the conversation phase about, are things willed to an institution? Do they go to our children? 14-year-old, we talk about both the business and our object right now. She's like, okay. But we're trying to figure out what we want our rest after. And I think it feels a little more urgent right now because we recognize that we're doing this work in a climate crisis. So like, what does preservation, what does preserving these items look like with a sense of urgency?
And I would ask, how many folks here have been to an estate sale? Oh, yeah. Be a shopping club. And so estate sales, the great outset of our business, we didn't quite go to estate sales, and I'm the kind of person where like I don't like hospitals. I'm like a little spiritually like things, and I was just like, I don't want to go into somebody's home. I don't know if they died there. I don't know what they have given in life. I don't want to go in and get their energy. I just didn't know. And once we started to go to them, I was like, okay, there's a way to traverse these spaces with reverence and respect and honor, but also to give these objects a new life, a new meaning, and expanded lifespan. And so that really, I mean, in chapter 1, on the very first page of chapter 1, we talk about how, you know, we think about what our estate sale would be. And I'm just like, we would want, quick answer, we would want regular people, individuals to have things. We would want institutions to have some of our things, but we would want our community to be able to have, we're collecting for y'all. We wrote this book for y'all. We made sure that we are cutting these stories for y'all. So we just want to make sure that once we pass it, we want to make sure of it too, because we are going to be here. But once we pass it, make sure that our stories get and our objects get to the people that they need to go to. And I think that's been the most important thing, because I look around our home all the time and it's just like, I can't believe we have some of these things. And it's like, we may not even have a use for some of these things, but I know once we're going, somebody will. And so I think that's the important collection. And we'll go back to that for our objects.
Yeah, so for the book that I wrote, so we did an open call for submissions, for family submissions through Instagram, like 2019 and 2020, right? And once those submissions came in, and you know, I'm listening and trying to figure out how I was going to create this book, right? What does it look like? I kept thinking about home. That was like one of the recurring themes. And so, you know, categorize and you're sequencing all of these photos. And then, you know, sometimes, and then I bring myself into the conversation. So each chapter starts with a photo of from my family archive, right? But then there's visual gaps, right? And it was so important for me to go to institutions and not just source just regular photographs, but I'm leaning to photographs of people who donated them, right? And that's that's how we are able to bridge those visual gaps, at least for me, So I think about it. I mean, I remember one of the questions that you asked me was, like what types of things are you collecting? I'm more of a record store, you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know about having because there's so much energy, right, attached to it. There's so spirits, there's so much, and I don't know if I'm ready for those types of conversations in my house because, because like people be talking, not be listening, right? That's very important for me. So don't be scared, So, but thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that.
And that's funny you said that, and thank you for saying that. And it's just a quick precursor to the conversation we'll have where we're thinking about questions and kind of getting back to what that conversation will be here. Like, what spirit do our objects have, and what does it mean to bring them into our personal spaces? And reflecting, I'm just thinking that there have been so many times where I've seen an object, let's just thinking at a flea market, at an estate sale, whatever, and something told me not to buy it. And I'm like, that's civil. It never even made it into my home, or it has some kind of ill presence or negative presence around me. Whereas, like, I know one of the mantras we say all the time is what will be for us will be for us, because there are millions of vintage objects, and you can go crazy being like, I'm going to sell this, so I got to go to this estate sale. But what will be for us will be for us, and that things that actually make it into our collection, we're not finding them, they're finding us. And so I believe that there's somebody there, spirits there, energies there, making sure that the right pieces get to.
And speaking of the conversation in Philly, we're teasing this conversation. Y'all look but one of the things that I'm excited about for that conversation is Chantel and Mama Couple talked about how they clean objects, usually what that process looks like, because Chantel's already iffy about vintage to begin with. She goes into a vintage shop and she's like, they talking. That's why I just be very, very perceptive. And so, yeah, this whole process, depending on your spiritual system, there are ways, if you're interested, for you to clean and cleanse objects when you bring them into whatever space. So I'm excited to explore that and to share that resource with folks who want to learn. I have a question for you. We talked about records and collecting, but when is the last time you did go to a vintage shop? Just first shop,
over the holidays, right? So I have a daughter. My daughter is 22. She goes to stomach, right? Right down the street. And so when we were growing up, we would always go to these thrift stores, and she's like the biggest thrifter right now, right? She out thrifts everybody, right? You gotta put her on time. Like you own the bag. X amount of time in the store, right? She went to go to Orlando, right? So we were at Goodwill, we went to the flea market. So that was that, right? And I was just a supporting character. I didn't buy anything. I was just here to support her, right? But you know what? Because I'm still fairly new, I'm working my way around Atlanta, Metro Atlanta. I really have little vibe lines, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's record store like Soul Village. I think.
Yes.
I met the owner. I was so shocked. I was walking and my book is there. And I'm like, oh my God, right? So I meet the owner. He's so wonderful. Yeah, so I get my records, and then there's criminal records, like right across from that. Those records kind of expensive. We'll help you. But I'm everywhere. There's like a cool record store in Marietta, like I see everywhere. But I stick to records. I know where I'm comfortable. But I'm open. Like I might need to go to Philly because I'm kind of open to hearing more about cleansing. You know, because like sometimes I want something, but I'm like, let me just get the retro version of it. You know, the new model that just was made was retro as opposed to the reproduction, right? Yeah, as opposed to the thing itself.
I appreciate that. Because we have different sensitivities to things, and different thresholds and desires, our collections look different. That's the beauty. And to enter everyone's space, home, and they don't all look the same. And our relationship to objects, and what's passed on, what is shared with those who come after us, it's a little different. That makes the work so much more exciting. So, I'm not interested in, this idea that Black folks' collections all need to look, or we all have the same relationship to objects. Our work is dope because it is so varied and expansive. So, thank you for sharing that.
So I have watched you all on Instagram, right? Evolve and grow. And from Instagram to brick and mortar, right? Into this next iteration, this phase where you are right now. What's next as far as like, how do you evolve? Black market vintage, like what does Black market vintage look like 5 years from now? And who's guiding you? Like, who are your ancestral mentors? Who's guiding you in this process?
Also love this question. In the next 5 years, Black Market has another brick and mortar location for sure. It's really the landlord that we like. That's important because we were never going to do that lease. We're like, obvious that's it. So ideally, a home. I'm not sure if we own the space, but that's something we're talking about now. If we're not paying for it to anyone because we own it. We are, I think, doing what we're doing now, but at a supported level, meaning we have a staff to ensure the sustainability. Most of the work is just us. We've had interns and contracted out when we needed assistance, but it's primarily us. So when I say us and we in the email, I mean us. Right here, when we have staff meetings, we have staff meetings on Monday. We're a staff meeting and our dogs staff meeting. But I think I envision a team to ensure that the work is sustainable because we are lucky and privileged to have our hands in so many different pots right now. It's exciting. But we just want to make sure that business can run while we're also doing things that excite us in the work. So I think those things. I think we're absolutely still in Brooklyn. Within the next 5 years, ideally another second location in a city where there's loving community.
That's perfect. Also, the only thing I would add is we've been so blessed to have so many different mediums to share our work. That we want to be able to be on TV screens, we want to be able to be on movie screens, be on podcast speakers. There are so many stories to tell. And it's not necessarily us being the ones to tell the story, but sometimes we are the ones who find the story. And so just being able to share our history in so many different ways, I think over the next year, we're going to be exploring some new ways to tell stories because our history is so rich that the things that we find, we have to share with our community. So, yeah, over the next 5 years, TV, movie, second book, second kid, third dog, third vintage dog.
Yeah. And think about what, this presidency and the climate, like, if we're thinking about the next 4 years, 5 years, what is expected and needed from folks like us, folks like themselves, who are doing work around memory and ensuring that the historical record is accurate and accounts for the fact that all of us have existed, our histories have existed, and our ancestors have existed, our contributions have existed, and are valid. So I think this time is, I don't know, I'm kind of torn. I keep saying this time is like calling for something different of us, but also we've been here. Been here and survived this and have reinvented ourselves and have pushed on. And so this doesn't feel different. But I do think that it is, encouraging us to sit up a little straighter and do our work, as Auburn said. So we ask about her guides. She is my guide, literary mother, ancestral guide. We were just at Spelman today in her papers, her collection, and spent 2 hours in the archives looking at everything from books to letters to photographs to her hat and her glasses, her personal objects. And so I am always thinking about her in this work because she encourages me to, and has encouraged me to remember what my work is. To ask, are you doing your work? Whatever your work is, are you doing your work? So this time I'm thinking about what my work is. And it is certainly this. And work around century Black books outside of the side. Do you have any ancestral guides you want to mention?
Sure. I would say my ancestral guides are mostly familial. My dad, my ancestors. I think about kind of what brought me to my understanding of being Black Americans. I come from a very big service family, and so for at least 4 generations, we've been in the military service. And so for me, as a child, I just didn't understand. I used to ask my dad, I was like, he volunteered for the Vietnam War. I was like, he's Black, right? You didn't have to go. And so the idea of the double consciousness, but also the juxtaposition and duality of being Black and American, and how you rectify those things. That is really what brought me to this work, because I'm like, there's more to the story. Like, there's more to fill in those gaps to make Black American make sense. And that's really where, as a child, I got intrigued in, like, what does it mean to be a Black American?
How are we on time?
Okay, maybe one more question. Let's move to group questions.
Okay. I wanted to say something. As far as you mentioned, like, the political climate, right? And you mentioned going to Spelman and looking through the papers of Country Board. And as part of the work that I do, it's always about bringing unearthing, right? And also reminding us, of you know, that we've been here before, right? And we have to figure out how to chart a path forward. But I'm hoping that the work that I do, that they're leaving with like nuggets, right? Or they inspire you all, right? Because I can't do it all. I feel like we're all part of a large story. Like I'm keepers of the culture, right? Like I can keep, you know, I can keep books, I can collect, I can keep my mother's songs. But I'm only part of the story, right? Like so, and I really rely on, you know, the collaborative community, you know, to comment, drop notes, and send me emails, give me insight, right? When you leave comments on photos, you know, that provides context or metadata that wasn't there originally that we cannot attach, you know, things to faces and, you know, lived experiences. So I just really want to thank you all for, again, inviting me, for doing the work, for inviting me to be part of the book, right? Being part of this conversation. And 5 years from now, I'm on board. Within 5 years, I'm looking to see you all in Brooklyn and pop up in Atlanta. Do some shopping.
Definitely, thank you for that. And the thing that I love about both our work and our books is that this isn't about positioning ourselves as experts in this field, even though we've been doing this work for a very long time. It's about democratizing the work. That every single one of us in the space right now, those who are streaming or will stream or will hear this conversation, they are part of our future. Like we invest so much into history because we understand that it's so much part of our future. And how across the time continuum, honoring our stories will only give us a stronger future together. I love that we are able to empower some folks to really dig in your basements and to go into your own familiar, start with your own familiar archive. You know, who are the people of your family? Who are the trailblazers of the folks in your community? And preserving those stories is just so important.
I love that. I think that's so important. I think there's this sense that folks who do our work, or historians or archivists, their work is about dealing with the past. And in some ways, it absolutely is. I feel like the kind of investment that we and others are making is really about ensuring Black futurity, Black futures. So I think we're all holding both of those things, straddling both of those things at the same time. We are trying to ensure that a Black future is expansive for all of us when we invest in where we have come from and the objects that hold those stories. And thinking about the future, what we talked about during our Zoom call was a little bit of AI and what the future of archiving looks like. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the things you're you have trepidations about, or you are curious about.
You know what? I have concerns about AI, right? Like, especially when, you know, the images that I'm sharing through Black archives, like we are real people, right? With lived experiences attached and memories and lived full lives. And you know, social media is a completely different landscape from when I originally started, right? And so it's like a lot of things are not attached, right? Metadata is not attached. And so when you're utilizing AI programs, like I see people, like I'll post, you know, something like, you know, it's beautiful time in life, right? And then people question it, like, is this AI? Like, this is no, this is like we were here. This is us, right? And where I think I'm concerned, or my concern is that, you know, we can't differentiate or discern between, and this is beyond visual literacy, because visual literacy only takes us so far. Like I can learn, you know, but as AI gets smarter, right? You're not going to be able to decipher, you know, like is this real or is this not? You're just relying on, like, this is 1965 Mississippi, like Jackson, Mississippi, and then you have this young person who doesn't know right? And then they run with it. That's concerning to me, you know. And so I think for me, it's important for me to continue to show up as a credible source. You know, you know, you look at the images. You know, it's much information that I can find that I attach. I keep that intact. You know, this is the year. This is the date. This is where I source it. These are the things that go along with it. And yeah, it's scary. So.
And that makes me think about I remember Delta Center Shorty Incorporated. But that makes me think about it might have been like 2021 where like all these AI photos of like D9 organizations kept coming out. And every time I kept seeing it, I was like, well, we have real photos. We have real people who look just as fine. They're not flying cars that say 1913 on the side, but they're real people. And so I think that piece of it where it's like, I think it can do a major disservice in erasing the real joy that was there and erasing the real people that were there for some kind of utopic idea of what Blackness looked like in the past. In our last chapter, we talk about, you know, like I said, what will tomorrow's vintage be? And with a digitized world, it is real. Like people's birth certificates are going to be digital. People's marriage certificates are all going to be digital. All this stuff, our paper, ephemera. Whether it's not going to be in the next 5 years, but maybe in the next 15 years, a lot of our stuff is just going to be digital just by nature of that. And so one thing that we were meditating on is how to collecting practice change. You know, how do our archiving practice change when a lot of our life now is on digital platforms that we don't own it. So one conversation we had was with Stephen Booth, who is the lead archivist for the Johnson publications. Is it that name? Oh no, All Johnson. Yeah, the whole Johnson collection. And we had a great conversation with him. At the end of the conversation, we're like, did we forget to ask you anything? He said, the one thing I want your audience to know is we do not own these social media apps. They are not an archive. You may be able to go through and see all the stuff that you've had on there. If you ever want to monetize it, if you ever fully want to take it off, you do not own it. And it was just something as simple as that to change your thought process around, okay, I need to be archivist in a more succinct way than I own. And like those conversations, I think will really help us move forward so that we have succinct communal collecting practices as our world does become more digital. But I do think that there are some opportunities, like I'm really big in crypto on Web3, that I think there are opportunities that will help our archiving in the future. Because we've been left out so many textbooks and books, I just don't want us to be left out of that.
All right, so I think we're going to do a Q&A with the audience.
So still this mic. So we got time for about 3 questions, which I know is not very many. Come on down, but we're going to do a quick Q&A so that we have more time during the signing. So I promise I'm not cheating.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm a big fan, so I'm a little nervous. Okay. Short. What is your favorite vintage? I know maybe you have most just always that question. I'll never prepare for it.
So how I started answering this is my favorite vintage item today, because it changes, is today it is my collection of Lord first edition poetry, a bunch of signed, very rare, right? They are full box in our home, and today they could be a thing. Like if I gotta grab a thing, that's okay. Okay. Stay together. But her work is just so pivotal. As I already mentioned, she's a guide in so many ways. So that's my favorite. Those are my favorite objects today.
And mine would be a while back. We from a flea market, which was wild to think about. We got a original Pullman Porter's uniform and Pullman Porter hat. And all together. I remember seeing at the table. I was like, I don't even know how much put in. Right. the network of Pullman Porters, when I think about the network of Pullman Porters, I think about Black Twitter. And how it became the national network for Black news, for Black connection, for Black business. As people were migrating, where did they know to go? Pullman Porters didn't, tell folks where to go. The newspapers, reading books were all transported on the Pullman Porter trains. So that idea of, it may not have been, Elon Musk's Twitter or whatever that is, but it's an idea that people we created a network to be able to communicate and lift ourselves up. And that is just like a physical reminder of the ways that, and being a porter was not even something to really aspire because the lower was one of the lowest ranks in the Pullman, organization. But using what we got to get to where we need to go, I think that's the lesson that whenever I look at that, I see that. Don't steal that. That's a dissertation.
I started collecting in college. I did not have much money, so I was only able to afford like vintage advertisements, like the cream of wheat ads and Aunt Jemima ads and everything. And someone actually made me a very tall Aunt Jemima doll. So I'm going somewhere with this, okay? I asked someone to come visit me and said, "Do you realize people will find that offensive?" I'm like, okay, sorry, but I love the doll. Someone made it for me. I'm very content having the doll. And he pretty much kept telling me people will find this offensive. Obviously, he found that offensive. Okay, I was like, I'm sorry. But the question I want to ask you is, what is your response when you have certain items in your possession and people have responses to some of these things you may have?
It's a conversation for us and an opportunity to have a dialogue. So as you can tell that story, I'm thinking the way you said you phrased it, like he said, people would find this. My first question, like, are you offended? Where the people are you offended? So let's over and over again. Yeah, some people might be, but also some people might be offended by a presence or us to do this work as a very queer couple. Sure. Why? Let's talk about it. I find that again, we are varied, and so I'm not going to tell any black person that they should feel a certain way about certain objects. And I am actually excited to have conversations when folks are intrigued or repulsed by, Manny and Sambo ephemera and the Jolly Nigger banks, those cast iron banks. Like, let's talk about what that evokes for you and why, and whose imagination does this thing stem from? Yeah, it's imagination. What do you believe that this is a rendering of yourself or your ancestors, or is this light imagination? Like, where did all that come from? So I think it's an opportunity to really get into, again, like, who is depicted, whose imagination does it come from, how does that impact how you see yourself, or how you see us being depicted. And as an educator, like, I love that. That's not for everybody going into that exchange, but for me, this work is all about the exchange. It's all about the exchange.
And the idea of reclamation is at the heart of what we do. And not everything we plan is going to be pretty and nice and clean and have a nice storyline and a happy ending. And so it's just like, how do we collect, Negro section, Negro water fountain signs? It is based off of trauma. It is based off of otherism. But for us, the reclamation of it helps to change the story. Helps to change who's at the focal point. And so there are certain, like you mentioned, the Jolly Nigger banks and those grotesque caricatures with the sharp teeth and the like devilish, freakish ears and that kind of thing, where quite honestly, we've seen some of those things and it makes our spirit stir. It just doesn't, that is not me. That was not made in our image. That is not for us. And so it's just like that same thing. What will be for us will be for us. Clearly, though it was not for him. Bye. Thanks for coming. But also the dialogue can also help bridge that space of like, why is it important to you and why do you feel like you have to keep telling me that you believe in them? All
right, thank you. Thank you. Beautiful hat. Thank you.
Blessed family, so good to see y'all. It's so many archivists
and artists and creatives in this room as well. I want to shout out Lizette. I want to shout out Sierra Chastity, who is a huge archivist in our community. We'll build your archive. I'm not sure if they are here. But I'll tell y'all, I wanted to say an affirmation and then a question. But first, thank you for the section of your book with Black people on the car. Yeah. I know I have an early memory of me at 5 years old, growing up in Montgomery, Alabama, standing in the Cadillac, in the free. And it's one of the pictures that I have up in my room. So thank you for that section. So for me, the affirmation is, it's been such a blessing because I've had the opportunity to go to your physical store a few different times, intentionally gone, as I used to live in Brooklyn, but now back in I want to say I'm so grateful for the book because not only, are you doing the deep work, but you built out the business parts, which I think are very important for us. But for me, the other deeper affirmation is, and I think, Kiyanna, you are both kind of living in your desire of being like your elder, Audre Lorde. Y'all are politically Black and queer. And for me at this time, it's so amazing and refreshing to see that in front intentionally, right? Nothing being hidden, and I understand those of us in queer and gender non-conforming and trans communities is very difficult space. But when I walk into your place, or even on the online space or on the DM, right? When I get the Negro Digest magazine, which is the things that I collect, and it can be $15. That is an accessible price for multiple ones of us to start something. Instead of, when I'm on the archives and places in Oregon, which has so much of our shit, it's insane. Things are $100 for what? Right? It's not even yours. And so I think it's important the ways that us as queer, trans, and non-conforming folk make space. And so I hope as you two continue to kind of build and grow, that in your legacy building, you are thinking about stewarding space, because that is all of us stewarding space, in particular in Brooklyn. I think that's a very important space to be stewarding space. Of course, here in the South too. So that's an affirmation. My question is something my grandma wants to say in her ancestral self, Berkeley, Washington. What was a hard lesson? So, what's been a hard lesson for you? What's something that you maybe did or a contract that you entered into where you were like, if I could go back, I wouldn't do this anymore? What was something that you came into that maybe you backed out of, or for value-wise sake, or went all the way through because you thought you had to? What's a hard lesson?
I think one of the hardest lessons, one of the lessons we learned early on, is that you cannot control. It's tongue in cheek, but you cannot control where your items end up. You cannot control the intentions of the person buying them. You cannot control what they end up doing with the back. This is probably our first year in business, and for that affirmation is so important because at the very start of our business, we would talk about how much are we going to be at the front of this? Can this be a Black business? I had a white man tell us that we are appropriating white culture by being anti-collectors. Okay. You have an idea of they say that, but also it made me think, I was like, we're in Brooklyn, so there's this hipster culture around vintage. It's very white, it's very young, it's very male, it's very Williamsburg, Brooklyn, if you know what that means. Yeah. But that idea where it's like, do we conform and fit that, or do we be unapologetic ourselves? And where the question came down to, are we pigeonholing ourselves? Are we making our world smaller by doing this, or are we making it bigger? And we ultimately came down to our world is infinitely bigger. now that we have been specific about the people we want to serve. And so with that situation, we were at the Brooklyn Flea, we were there, and for us, it was like, oh, we made it. Brooklyn Flea was a big deal to be able to get there. And there was little doll, paint by numbers, and if you're familiar with paint by numbers from the 70s, it's hard to find black paint by numbers. Everybody who got them painted with white ones. And so we found a black paint by numbers, had a football player in the booth. This white couple comes up, a whole group of black folks, and they're just like, so cute, so cute. I want it. Great. I tell it to them, and then I hear them talking after the fact. And they're like, this is great for our fantasy football league. We'll cut the head off. We'll put X, Y, Z on top. And I like froze. This isn't something that's like $50,000. This is probably a $5 numbers. But that idea of once I put it out into the world, I have control over it. That's the hardest lesson, and it really made us think about where do we set up who is the community, but also our work is not about being exclusive, and I think that's something that we try to work through because there are black people, there are white people who love black people, there are white people who are in black families, and so I would never be like, you can't buy that because of how you look. I mean, that's repeating some of the same systems that put us where we are now. But that idea, like relinquishing, I already hear that. Let go that piece of control and like everything needs to end up in the Smithsonian as opposed to like let go of control.
I think, yeah, that was, yeah. Thank you for that affirmation.
Thank you guys so much. You guys are so inspiring. I was born in East Africa, Rwanda, and what I know about your work is you guys are connected back to that diaspora. And I'm just curious about your presence on the continent. If that's part of your strategy. That's about the 5 years. I'm just so curious about that. And then the other thing is, I and many people are very conscious about the type of things that we consume, especially in this day and age. Just curious about the type of things that you consume in terms of media, shows you guys are watching, things that you are intentionally consuming in order to broaden your thinking and broaden your world and preserve culture. Finally, I have a company, Juice Co. We would love to get you guys some fresh juice. We're a Black-owned, women-owned health and wellness company, and we're both urban farmers. Me and my business partner, we grow our own herbs and we source even the produce from fellow farmers throughout the state of Georgia. So,
thank you for those questions. Congrats on your work. So the first question, on the continent. I was in Ghana, at this point, like 10, 11 years ago, and have been itching to get back. Jannah has not been yet, and so we're hoping to get there together at some point soon. In terms of the ways that we are conscious of diaspora in our work, like that question that I mentioned before about who's included, who's the friends not included, is just always at the forefront. And so I would say that our concept of diaspora and place and Blackness is wide, and we are always thinking about how to expand the frame to include objects that are not just Black American, or that are, but can kind of be traced through different countries. So it's always on the forefront. We're sourcing within mind. I would love to devote more energy and thought power into what a presence on the continent could look like. I'm thinking about our vendors and the folks that we source from. They are making frequent trips to the continent, bringing objects back here. Sourcing for us, and we're purchasing from here once things are stateside. But us ourselves, we have not done a sourcing trip on the continent yet.
The second question, like, what are you consuming right now intentionally?
Yes.
Yeah, all that.
We are a very big podcast group. We're big drivers, which is weird for New Yorkers, but we drive everywhere. So podcasts, book podcasts we're really, really into. And that's interesting because I also think about the things that we're not consuming. I think is also important. Listening to your body, listening to your spirit, I think has been so important. And we're joking, we were talking about a TV show, Yellow Jackets. So Yellow Jackets we were watching, right? Last season. And I was like, I don't like how this is making me feel. I'm anymore. I'm not doing this. I'm trying to keep going. Like being critical and taking a moment to say, is this something that I want to indulge in? Is this good for me? How is it making me feel? I think a lot of, as I get older, I'm maybe taking more time to be like, how is this making me feel? What impact is this having on me? I think that also is just like such a good reminder for nothing in particular podcast, but I think that's
Yeah, major on the podcast. So love to read. Love to read our podcasts, the dailies, the New York Times. Who else? Friend Zone, Lucas, my least, just so many. Audio books as well. I have been listening to books because I like to multitask because I'm Jamaican. I can't do 5 things at a time, and so I am, cooking and listening to an audio book, or we are photographing objects for the shop, and there's a podcast going. But on the not list is the news. I'm trying to figure out what the balance is. Like, how do I stay informed and not be in this 24/7? There was a time during the pandemic where the news was just on in our house every day, almost all day, and we don't do that anymore. In fact, it is rarely on. So I'm looking for new places to get my news from. Al Jazeera has one of those places. Different sources. Can't be CNN, MSNBC. Shout out to Joy Reid.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for bringing once again some fabulous programs. My name is Ms. Bean, the program manager here at Auburn. Thank you all for coming. And I don't know who all is in the audience, but I heard there's a few archivists, a few librarians, and collectors in general. Okay. Wonderful. So, we live in Fulton County here in Atlanta, Georgia. We just released limited edition library card for Auburn Avenue. It was designed by Charlie Palmer. In fact, the card is designed individually by him. 500 library cards. So if you live here, like place the Fulton County library card that you can. That's tonight. Donated to like Fulton Public Library Foundation. Nominally priced. So if you don't have a card, this might be a good time to get tickets. We do it here in Fulton County. So we wanted to let you all know this little sheet of paper here is an indication of what the card means. And of course, Image is one of the librarians that started Auburn Avenue Research Library and it held the theaters, which is one of our roots are here. So just want to let you all know. Thank you.
For having us in the library is always such a pleasure to be here. Thank you all so much for bringing your work to Atlanta. We hope that you'll literally bring your work to Atlanta. That's that for y'all. Thank you to Renata for your work. We are all sort of information people. That's why we're here. And so we're so grateful that y'all honor information. We encourage you, if you already have your book, you will line up on the left-hand side of the table to get it signed and personalized. If you would like to purchase the book or purchase Renata's book, because that is also for sale, and you can get it signed, line up on the right-hand side. Before you go, can we get one more round of applause?
I should have done this sooner. But the idea that there are articles in the room, you gotta just send us a DM. We need like some kind of resource. So if you're an archivist, send us a DM and we'll put you on the listserv. We will do something. But that is